Hello, my name is Kenny Gorman, and we're going to be taking a look at how easy it is to create deployments on Eventador.io today.
All right, first step is to log into the Eventador console. You can do that with username or password right here, or you can log in via GitHub authentication. I'm going to use GitHub for this example. All right, so once we're logged in, you can see a list of our deployments. A deployment is simply just a stack of resources, in this case Kafka, or it could be Kafka and Flink or other various components. We'll get into that in a little bit. Right now we have a couple different deployments already created. Today we're going to create a fresh one from scratch and produce and consume some data from it. And we'll go through the security context and how everything's set up here in just a few seconds. So let's go ahead and create the deployment. Just click on the button. First thing we're going to do is give it a logical name of some sort. Let's call it small deployment 01 and just give it a random description. Sake of argument. You can also select what region, AWS region, that you'd like it in. In this case, US East is fine. You can select what Kafka version you want. In our case, 1.1 is perfect. We're close to supporting 2.0, so that should be rolled out pretty soon. And in this case, I could add Apache Flink in as well, but in our case, let's just keep it to Kafka so we can keep this example pretty simple. And we're going to choose what kind of plan we want. So we can choose a simple developer plan that just has a single broker and a single zookeeper node. Or in our case, let's just choose something that has a few brokers, 3 brokers and 5 zookeepers, which is sort of the industry standard for a reliable Kafka cluster. All right, so we've got that filled out. We're just going to go ahead and create. And that's going to reach out and spin up all the resources it needs to on AWS, start building that cluster and configuring that cluster, and we'll just wait for that to finish. All right, so our deployment's created. And the first thing you'll notice is we have an alert here talking about security context. So every deployment that we build has a deny by default security rule on it. And so the first thing we need to do is open that up for access. So for this example, we're going to be sending some data from my laptop here. So we're just going to go ahead and I'll click here. I'm going to go ahead and detect my current IP by selecting that button. And I'll just say KG's laptop. So I'm basically whitelisting my laptop here so we can send data to Kafka and we can produce and consume data right from it. All right. You'll also notice we can set up SSL certificates here in the security dialog. Let's go back to the deployment. All right, like I said, denied by default, so you have to whitelist everything that's connected to it. We also have some stats, and I'll show that in a second, and some basic settings. But let's just dive into Kafka itself and talk about what was deployed. So we wanted version 1.1, so that was set up. We have 3 M4 large brokers, each with a little bit of disk, and 5 zookeepers. So let's just go and select that. Drill in a little bit here. So by default, we basically create a topic called default sync. In this case, it has 3 replicas and 32 partitions. So it's pretty well spread across the entire cluster. You can also look at brokers, including adding a broker on the fly. So if we wanted to grow this cluster, we could just add broker. It would add a 4th broker. You can add as many as you want at a time. So I could just say 4 brokers or 1 or whatever we need. Go back to Kafka here. So let's talk about the connections here, connections tab. So we have all the endpoints that allow access into your cluster. In this case, so we have 3 brokers, so all 3 are enumerated here, both in plain text and SSL. And then we also have a SASL SSL endpoint if you're using SASL authentication. And at the bottom, we have some context-specific examples. So perhaps in Python, you want to use Python to connect and send some data. There's an example in a bunch of different languages. In our case, we're just going to use Kafka Cat from the command line. And we'll do that in a couple seconds. You can also set up SASL users here. So if you want to use authentication in a similar way to like a database would with the username and password, you can set that up here. In our case, we're just going to go back. Let's create a topic for our example. Let's just call it my example. example, if I can spell. Let's do 32 partitions again, and replication factor of 3, which matches our cluster. We can also do some advanced settings. We can set retention. We can do things for compacted topics, cleanup policy, things like that. In our case, we're going to leave those alone. This is just for a simple example. So let's go ahead and create that topic. All right, so now we have a topic called My Example. If you click on it and select it, you'll see there's 32 partitions. Each one of them has their leader ID enumerated as well as all the replicas. Okay, so it gives you kind of a layout, basic layout of your cluster. And you can sort by any of these fields. If you're looking for a particular leader, a particular replica, it helps you find various layout of your cluster. In this case, if we had been writing with consumer groups, we would see those here, including the lag on those consumer groups. We're not doing that right now, so we don't have anything there. And again, the configuration. So we can set the configuration for any one of these topics on the fly. Hit save here, and that'll be made current, as well as just deleting the topic. So a couple of settings there. All right, so that just kind of gives you a kind of high-level overview of topics. Let's go back to the various. So for our example, we're just going to write to My Example. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just go over to connections. We're going to take this example and use Kafka Cat to just send a hello world over to basically produce hello world to the cluster. So let's go back to terminal here. And I'm just going to paste that in, and let's just change the topic to, what was it again? My Example. There we go. Oops. All right. So we sent we can send a few more hello worlds. I'm just up arrow and entering. All right. So we produced a bunch of data over to Kafka. Now let's go back and we can basically select here. And we're going to grab the Kafka command to consume those. Pretty simple stuff. Go back to the command line. Now we're running Kafka Cat in consume mode. Let's run it, let it consume that data. Let's actually consume off the right topic here. My example. There we go. There's the hello worlds. All right. So that's basic produce and consume against the cluster. If we wanted to allow other connections in, again, we'd need to go back to the security context and open that up, CIDR mask for a larger deployment. Say maybe we had some app servers we need to connect. We'd go back here. Excuse me. We go back and open up the security tab and allow in a wider CIDR mask, or maybe a more specific CIDR mask for my app servers. Maybe it's a development environment, something like that. All right, so last but not least, let's talk about the stats. If you're producing and consuming on a regular basis, you'll see statistics. You can see that I've already sent a couple in. A few bytes of data have been going in. If we want to look at that in larger view, we can see that I started producing data and consuming data from the Kafka topic. This is all very configurable. So if I wanted to look at over a different time period, or I wanted to default to a different deployment, or pick different statistics, or even set different colors, I can do all that within the configuration. This is also available via REST endpoint, and in our enterprise plans, we also have Datadog support. So a couple different ways to consume the statistics about your cluster. And that's pretty much it. We go back to deployments here. You'll see that we have the small deployment. It's created in AWS US East in a particular VPC for us. That could always be VPC peered by some other application server. We're running Apache Kafka. We're using these assets, and we're producing and consuming data pretty easily. Cool. Well, hopefully this was a really quick demo on how to create a deployment in the Eventador environment and how easy it is to get started. Thanks.